With that, let's start with fiscal policy. Very interesting. It does seem like the narrow majorities, or the lack of a majority at all, in Congress, are causing a rethink of spending and taxes, especially now that with vaccinations, the economy is getting back towards normal. Not normal yet, to be sure. But it does seem that the close races, which will take place next November, not this November, but the following November, are already starting to weigh on decision making in terms of fiscal policy, both spending and taxes. There was a Harris poll taken in the last week or so of 10 Democrat swing states. It was a Harris X poll, and it was for a group called No Labels. It was taken during May 18th to May 23rd, and some of the results were very interesting, and I think are factoring into the way that the Biden administration is beginning to think about both spending and taxes. The bottom line is spending will likely not be as high as President Biden's proposals, and taxes, surprisingly, we think are starting to move back into a capital-friendly stance. So as far as the results of the poll, let's see, strong majorities in all 10 districts say taxes overall should either be lowered or kept the same, while between 61 and 71% in each district opposed raising federal taxes. By majorities ranging from 66 to 72%, voters in all 10 states opposed raising capital gains taxes, while between 64 and 70% in each district opposed raising taxes by $1.8 billion. So that's very interesting. These are 10 swing states for the Democrats. Those are the results. And it does seem as though the talk around spending is starting to sound a little bit like there may be something more bipartisan than otherwise might have been the case. And it does seem like the tax talk is now more around corporate taxes, but not corporate taxes going up, tax rates going up from 21 to 28%, but now this minimum corporate tax at 15%. So every corporation who has not been paying taxes pays at least 15%. That seems to be the direction in collaboration with the European Union, or the G7, I believe. So that's very interesting. This means we may not see a capital gains tax rate increase, which would be phenomenal, and I do believe the market is starting to respond to this, nor a corporate tax rate increase, certainly not to 28%, maybe a few percentage points, but even that seems to be diminishing in probability. So I would say on the fiscal policy side of the equation, relative to our fears, certainly, about capital unfriendly policies, and certainly policies unfriendly to innovation, we are beginning to feel a lot better. Now, the monetary policy side is also very interesting. The Fed, despite what everyone seems to be saying, the Fed is already starting to react. Interestingly, the money growth rate, so M2's growth, peaked in February at 27% and is now down to 18% on a year-over-year basis. I haven't seen it below the 20% range in more than a year, I think, or roughly a year. So that's very interesting. Anyone worrying about inflation will have to take note of that. 18% is still a very a rapid rate of growth, but the direction has changed unequivocally. The other thing that happened this week is the Fed said it was going to unwind some of the bond ETF and outright bond purchases that it made during the depths of the coronavirus crisis. Now, this is only $60 billion, which is nothing when M2 is at roughly $20 trillion and the monetary base close to $8 trillion. But nonetheless, it's a change in tone. Again, those worried about inflation have to take note. Now, the second thing I wanted to focus on is the economy. As you know, we've been talking about a V-shaped recovery for a long time. In fact, we started these calls during the depths of the coronavirus crisis, when I think many were worried about an outright depression. And we began to talk about a V-shaped recovery and started citing evidence from the government's reports to support that case. And of course, that is what has played out. Now we are in a little bit of a different camp. We're essentially saying that businesses were behind the curve even before the coronavirus. Businesses were not keeping up with consumer demand as it relates to inventories, and they were not increasing capital spending budgets. Why? There were two reasons. One, China-U.S. saber rattling, the trade conflict, and the fear of supply chain issues. And two, maybe more important, was the inverted yield curve in 2019, which, according to the majority of economists out there, and according to post-World War II history, not pre-post-World War II, as we've gone through, would have suggested a recession within 6 to 9 months. And so they were poised for a recession. When the coronavirus crisis hit, businesses shut down. They were already behind the curve, and then they shut down, assuming demand was going to be dead for a while. And what happened instead is the government responded very quickly and pushed out the PPPs, the payment programs, to help people in a time of distress. And consumer saving rate shot up. I believe it got to 35% plus in April or May of last year. So the consumer had quite a big cushion, had never had such a big cushion, and the consumer started to spend. What did the consumer spend on? Goods, non-durable and durable goods, because those were the only items that consumers could spend anything on. Services were pretty much shut down. Now, what's interesting about this is goods make up actually less than a third of all consumer spending. Services make up the rest. So for the past year, the consumer, pre-vaccination especially, was focusing his or her spending on goods, just a third of a typical budget. And consumer spending rose as a share of total spending to more than 40%. I don't think it's been that high in the United States in quite some time. As a result, we believe that consumers have actually been building inventories themselves at home with all these goods, many of which they will not need now, that they can go out and start to spend on services. And we are beginning to see that happen. Now, what we think is also happening is that businesses are still scrambling, trying to catch up. Inventories relative to sales are at a record low. And as a result, that businesses are losing sales, and they become a bit panicked about it. And so the scramble continues. And usually when I hear panic and scramble, it means double ordering, triple ordering to make sure to get those supplies so that they won't lose sales in the future. Meanwhile, the consumer has already shifted to services.